Mercedes Moné has hit a point in her career that almost doesn't feel real anymore. Every time you think she's done, every time you think she might finally slow down or let someone else have the spotlight for a minute, she comes back with another piece of gold on her shoulder. It's gotten to a point where even her biggest fans are whispering the same question. How far can she actually push this before the whole thing snaps? Because whether you love her or can't stand the sight of her trophy, one thing's for sure. No one in modern wrestling is doing what Mercedes Moné is doing. Not even close. 13 championships, spread across promotions that span continents and fan bases, all orbiting around one woman who refuses to be boxed in by anyone's rules but her own. But to understand how she got here, you have to rewind to a moment that completely changed her trajectory. For years, she was Sasha Banks, a global star, but a star playing inside someone else's universe. She had the fame, she had the matches, she had the fans, but she didn't have what she valued most: full creative control. When she walked out, it sent shockwaves across the industry. Some people called it ego, others called it bravery. But what it really was evolution. She didn't leave wrestling behind. She rebuilt herself right in front of us, piece by piece, idea by idea, until the name Mercedes Moné stopped being just a rebrand and became a statement. And the moment she stepped out as the CEO, everything about her career shifted. She was no longer the player. She was calling the plays. Her first major move outside the machine was simple but loud: win titles. And not just the obvious ones. Not just the ones that everyone expected her to chase. She wanted everything. She wanted to create a map of her own success that spread out far beyond one company or one country. Because when you're building a legacy, staying in one lane doesn't make you great. It makes you predictable. And if there's one thing Mercedes Moné refuses to be, it's predictable. Today, she's sitting on a mountain of gold. 13 titles from different promotions. Some fans joke that she probably needs a separate suitcase just to travel with all of them. Others swear she's reached the monopoly stage of wrestling, where the second she walks through the curtain, the audience already knows what's coming. Someone's about to hand her another belt. But her collecting spree didn't happen randomly. Every win tells a different story. Some titles elevated her. Some titles she elevated. Some were stepping stones. Others were turning points. And the more she collected, the more undeniable she became. One of her biggest milestones came when she set the record for the longest women's singles match in AEW. 19 straight minutes of non-stop pace and pressure. 19 minutes of proving she wasn't just hype. She wasn't just reputation. She wasn't just a name. She was a force strong enough to carry a division on her back without skipping a beat. That's the kind of moment wrestlers dream of. And she walked into it like it was her natural habitat. Then came the TBS Championship, a title that didn't just add to her collection, but helped reshape how the division was viewed. She didn't treat the belt like a placeholder or an accessory. She treated it like a responsibility. And by the time she became the longest-reigning champion, she'd done more than hold gold. She'd carved her name into the identity of the title itself. But her biggest flex might not even be the victories. It's the places she's done them. Mercedes Moné has left footprints in some of wrestling's most legendary arenas: Madison Square Garden, Wembley Stadium, the Tokyo Dome, Arena Mexico. 4 different worlds, 4 different fan cultures, and she didn't just show up, she made history. No woman before her had checked all 4 off the list. She turned buildings into milestones. Her ambition doesn't stop at wrestling either. She's building an empire outside the ring. She launched her own digital magazine. She's growing her brand like a CEO, which is exactly what she calls herself. She's positioning herself as the kind of performer who doesn't rely on companies to stay relevant. She creates her own spotlight, and the companies follow her instead of the other way around. But every empire has shadows. Because behind the cheers, behind the headlines and the sold-out crowds, there's another side of this story: the backlash that keeps growing bigger each time she picks up another championship. Some fans don't hold back anymore. They say the belts are losing their meaning. They say she's turning championships into props. They say it's starting to feel like she's winning titles just to win titles, not because the story calls for it. They say the CEO has become the collector, and the act is wearing thin. And the criticism gets louder every time she raises a belt from a promotion that casual fans barely know. To them, it feels like a victory that doesn't matter. A win with no weight. Its only purpose: another photo, another graphic, another round of internet debates. But here's the part most people miss. Every time Mercedes Moné wins a small or lesser-known title, she's using her name to do something bigger. She's pulling attention toward promotions that normally fly under the radar. She's expanding the reach of women's wrestling by going places most big names wouldn't even bother stepping into. She brings audiences with her wherever she goes, and when she leaves, those promotions are suddenly on people's radar. That's influence. That's strategy. Still, the question keeps hanging in the air: when does the climb become too steep? When does collecting turn into crowding? And most importantly, what happens when the downfall begins? Because she can't hold 13 titles forever. At some point, the losses will come. One by one, the belts will fall out of her hands, and wrestlers often get defined by what happens in those moments. The rise is exciting, but the fall is what determines their legacy. Will losing one belt trigger a wave of defeats, a collapse that becomes a storyline of its own? Or will she drop titles strategically, using each loss to fuel another chapter of the CEO saga? Some people think she's building toward a unification. Others think she's going to chase the biggest women's championship in the entire industry and drop her smaller titles on the way there, clearing the path for that one defining moment. Some fans believe she's setting up the ultimate crash, a storyline where she loses everything and rebuilds again from scratch, more dangerous than ever. Then there's the possibility no one wants to admit. What if she's setting herself up for an exit? Not from wrestling entirely, but from the version of the business everyone expects her to stay in. She has the leverage, the fame, the global recognition to walk into acting, music, or her own creative ventures full-time. She's proven she doesn't need a company's backing to stay relevant. If anything, companies need her more than she needs them. But for now, the story isn't over. In fact, it feels like she's approaching a crossroads. Every title she wins brings her closer to a peak, a moment where she either cement herself as one of the greatest to ever do it or push the narrative so far that it demands a collapse. And whichever direction she chooses, she's going to make sure it's unforgettable. That's just who she is. What makes Mercedes Moné fascinating isn't just the gold she wears or the records she breaks. It's her ability to shape the story while she's living it. So many wrestlers become legends when they retire. Moné's building her legacy in real time, match by match, belt by belt, idea by idea. She's rewriting what it means to be a modern wrestler, not confined by one company, one country, one audience, or one lane. She's a creator, a disruptor, a strategist, a risk-taker, the kind of performer who forces the entire industry to level up just to keep up with her. And that's why she's so polarizing. People aren't arguing because they don't care. They're arguing because she makes them feel something. Whether it's love, respect, irritation, or full-blown outrage, she gets a reaction every single time. And in a world where attention is the real currency, that's her most valuable skill. So the real mystery isn't why she's collecting so many belts. It's what she plans to do with them. Is she gearing up for a moment that completely flips the script? Is she preparing for a legacy-defining showdown? Is she pushing herself toward a historic achievement no one else has reached? Or is she building her empire just so she can burn it all down on her terms? Whatever the endgame is, it isn't random. It isn't accidental. It isn't impulsive. Mercedes Moné knows exactly what she's doing. And that's why every belt she lifts in the air keeps the world talking. Now the only question left is simple. Do you think she's building something legendary? Or setting herself up for the most dramatic collapse wrestling has ever seen? Mercedes Moné has hit a point in her career that almost doesn't feel real anymore. Every time you think she's done, every time you think she might finally slow down or let someone else have the spotlight for a minute, she comes back with another piece of gold on her shoulder. It's gotten to a point where even her biggest fans are whispering the same question. How far can she actually push this before the whole thing snaps? Because whether you love her or can't stand the sight of her trophy wall, one thing's for sure, no one in modern wrestling is doing what Mercedes Moné is doing. Not even close. 13 championships, spread across promotions that span